You hit record or recording?
We are recording.
We're recording. Heary, heary, heary. The Parks Committee meeting for March 9th, 2022 is now in session. Before I do anything else, I'm going to announce, before I forget, that everything we do here is a recommendation to council, which meets next Tuesday, 6 o'clock. And, or we will have the final say at council. Roll call. Let it be noted that Alder Jesse Burnett, Alder Chris Weary, and Alder Lynn Gerlach, and the chair, Alder Scannell, are present and accounted for. I'll take a motion to approve our agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Weary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. I'll take a motion to approve our minutes from our last meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Burnett, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That too passes unanimously. On to regular business if we're ready.
Yes,
Can't
we're ready.
see. Okay. Item number 1, consideration with possible action on the request by the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation to donate and install habitat signage and artwork in the Bear Creek Greenway. Staff?
Yeah, so previously the Parks Committee granted approval for the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation to fundraise to install trail markers, trailhead signage, and artwork, and all that was going to be placed throughout the entire greenway. Since that approval, the trail markers and trailhead signage have been installed, and the group is now seeking approval for the next phase of the project. So if you look at the attachment, you'll see what their proposal is. So what they'd like to do is install educational signage throughout the greenway. So the signage would highlight all of the different habitats and ecosystems of the greenway, and it'll point out kind of unique features and native habitats throughout. So if approved, there would be 11 total signs that would be installed throughout the trail system. So in addition, they've also secured enough funding for the first sculpture, which was approved in 2020. So in 2020, you approved the group fundraising for art sculptures. Now they have enough funding to actually purchase and install the first one. So the art piece that they selected was a set of large butterfly wings where you can stand in the middle for a photo opportunity. And the wings would be placed adjacent to one of the new signs that they're proposing next to the prairie habitat sign. And it'll go along the paved trail in an area where they've been focusing a lot of prairie restoration efforts. So if approved, the sculpture would be approved would be installed in 2020. So they're ready to go on that one fairly quickly. So this sculpture piece would be the first of maybe 5 to 10 sculptures that they would fund and install throughout the greenway. So we would probably bring each sculpture forward for your review and approval so you could see the sculptures before they go in and approve it. But we do have Holly Baseman here. She is the executive director for the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation. If you'd like to open the floor to ask her questions, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to answer them.
Does anyone have questions?
I have a question of the director.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start there.
Is there any reason that you would recommend that we not approve this?
No, this is all very consistent with our mission and goals and previous discussions we've had with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation. And we're happy that they're fundraising for it because these are the type of projects that are hard for us to fund. So we're happy that they're good community teammates with us to fulfill our mission and our goals. So I would recommend approval.
Well, I would say as much as I like Holly Baseman and would love to see her and hear her speak, I'm ready to approve this.
Well, is there any other discussion? I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to approve, seconded by Alder Weary. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Well done, Holly. Thank you for all your work.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Are we ready for the second item, James? And
Yes.
on to item 2. Consideration with possible action on the request by TDS Metrocom LLC to approve a utility easement at Colburn Park. Staff?
So at the January 12th Parks Committee, you did approve a utility easement at Henistra Park. And we discussed that that TDS Metrocom will be installing miles and miles of underground cable throughout the city limits. And they'll be installing several large above-ground cabinets throughout the city. So there are several cabinets that will have to be placed on city property other than within the right-of-way where the majority of the wire will be pulled. And so they're right now in the next phase of approval. So they are requesting approval of similar easements that we approved at Henistra Park, at Colburn Park, Edison Park, and Mather Heights Park. So all 3 easements are needed to place these cabinets because they won't fit in the existing utility easements within the right-of-way. And if you recall from our previous discussion, I sent you an image of what these cabinets will look like with dimensions. I did include that in the agenda packet. So the cabinets are fairly large. They're 77 inches long, 59 inches tall, and 46 inches wide. So the proposed location at Colburn Park, we will be talking about each one individually to get approval for each one. That's why they're separate line items. But they're basically the same design for all 3, same cabinets, and really not much is different. So I think we can probably answer most of the questions unless they're site-specific as part of this Colburn Park request. So for Colburn Park, it'll be placed at the intersection of Locke Drive and 9th Street, so it's kind of where the sledding hill is currently. They'll need a 15 by 15 foot area for the cabinet installation itself. And then in this location, and this is the only location of the 3 where they do have to set it back offset from the right-of-way a little bit. So if they put it right next to the right-of-way, there'd be a vision obstruction with the cars at that intersection. So that's why they do have to set it back a little bit. And you'll see a graphic there showing the limits and how far they plan on sending it back from the right-of-way. And you'll see in there that they're planning on placing it adjacent to another utility cabinet that's already there. So it's not going to be, I think people are used to seeing utility cabinets in that location. So at the last Parks Committee, there was also a lot of discussion as to whether or not TDS Metrocom would allow the city to install artwork on the cabinets. So I have had that discussion with them. And they are open to that. They will not allow painting of the cabinets, but they would allow a plastic wrap, similar to a vehicle wrap. And so they'll work through the details with us after the cabinets are installed, if the city wants to fund that and get those installed. So if that's something we're interested in doing, they will definitely work with us on that, they said. They've already given us that approval. The big thing is we can't obstruct the doors from opening. There's some meters and some cabinets that are there. So there's only certain areas that we'll be able to wrap. We can't necessarily wrap the entire cabinet because when you look at it, there's a lot of kind of features on the cabinet. It's not just a box, there's other things on it too. So, and you can see that in the image. So for Colburn, I guess if you have any questions generally about the cabinets itself or the specific location at Colburn, we can talk about it in this agenda item.
Alder Burnett.
Director Ditchite, back when I lived in that neighborhood, I remember the utility companies would come around and, they actually approached me as a private homeowner to install one on my private property, and they were willing to pay for that installation. Mm-hmm. Is that something, are they paying the city of Green Bay for use of our real estate and property to install these?
If that's something that you would like us to proceed with, I can have those discussions with TDS Metrocom, but typically for all park easements, I can't speak for all departments, but for park easements, we typically don't charge for them because when you charge for them, that cost just gets passed on to the consumer and that makes their rates go up. But if it's something you're interested in, I think they would be supportive of it. But if you look historically at other easements that we bring through, we don't charge a fee for them.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that that's a strategy we need to take, but it is a public good that they're installing, Wi-Fi access and other internet services. So I don't want to be difficult necessarily, but I'm just saying that if the city were to turn down such easement, I don't know what rights they have to kind of force our hand, but if they had to go to a private property owner, they certainly would pay them. It's not my
Yes.
district. I have no other than being a real big supporter of Colburn Park, I have no strong opinions on placement there, but maybe Alder Weary would enlighten us with his opinion since it's his district.
Alder Weary, you care to add anything?
No, hey, I don't have a problem with it at that location. There used to be a small little building at that location, so there's always been something there of a utility nature. As long as it doesn't go away of the cross country running, anything like that, and I'm sure Danny looked at that. So
Yes.
you would almost think maybe even in lieu of paying us something that they would pay for the wrapping, or the art wrapping or something like that as a goodwill gesture, something like that.
And that is something that I have talked to them about, but they weren't able to get me a response
Okay.
prior to this meeting. They may be willing to do it, but I don't know if you'd want to make that conditional or not. But it's something that they are talking about internally because we are offering the easements free. And keep in mind too, there will be a few more easements down the road. I think there's only a couple more after these three, but there are a couple more that are going to come forward. I think I heard maybe 2 or 3 more after this.
Anything else, Alder Weary?
No, never know. Thanks.
Okay, Alder Gerlach.
Am I the only person who thinks these are so ugly? I just hate them. I just hate them. And as the chair of the Public Arts Commission, I would suggest that perhaps they could be invited to make a donation to the Public Arts Commission and then let the Public Arts Commission, do whatever we have to do to get them wrapped. I just think they're so awful looking. Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should move it to the bottom of the snow hill so that it stops.
Other issues with that.
Yeah.
If I could, yeah, I agree with you, Alder Gerlach. I hate them. I don't like looking at them. You notice them more now that this has come up several times. When I drive around town, I notice them a lot more in settings that I wish they would not be in, and especially these boxes that are above grade. Perhaps in residential, they're ajar. They're not even. They're dinged up. It's not good. And I think that this is the sort of thing where the public may not be aware of it, but the more and more that they see these sorts of things, they're going to come back to the city and say, why are you constantly approving these sorts of things in parks? We're noticing them more and more. So again, I don't want to be a stickler and always difficult when it comes to these because they're providing a public good, but I don't like them either. I don't like the site, and I'm being hypocritical because I'm using internet right now for this meeting. So I understand the hypocrisy in a way, but I agree with you. I don't like them. Visually, I hate seeing them. That's all.
Anyone else? Well, my other 2 cents is I think we can work with them on getting the. I think we're Director Dish. I just talked. I think we can end up working with them and accommodating these boxes. Though I'm a little surprised none of you have heard of industrial grunge.
is that what these are?
Yeah, those boxes they fit in perfectly.
Yep.
So, do we have a motion then from anyone?
Nobody wants to make the motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder. Yeah.
If those volunteered, yeah, I'll make that motion.
Yep. Motion approved, Alder Weary, seconded by Alder Brunette. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Should we just go on to the others? Is there any need to discuss those?
Unless you have specific questions on the locations, it's the same request.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Yes,
James?
we are.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the next one? item number 3, consideration with possible action on the request by TDS Metrocom LLC to approve a utility easement at Edison Park. I'll take a motion.
I will say, since this one's on the east side, it actually makes it look better.
I think this is now,
Industrial grunge
I
fits
think
the
this
east
is
side.
in my district now after redistricting. I'm looking for a picture. I
Move
saw,
to approve.
yeah, sure you do.
Want to second that, Alder Burnett?
Yeah, I'll say, we're all victims. It was Heena's.
I know.
Yeah.
They're coming for all of us.
Yep. Oh, motion by Alder Weary, seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Are we ready, James? On to 4. Consideration with possible action on the request by TDS Metrocom LLC to approve a utility easement at Mather Heights Park. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Alder Burnett, seconded
Second.
by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. On to item 5. Consideration with possible action on renewing the lease agreement with Graymont for the north property at Light Memorial Park and discuss acquisition options for the expansion of Memorial Park. We can go into closed session in this if we need to. Let's hear from Director Dishite and perhaps our new city attorney.
Yeah, I would just recommend that at this time we go into closed session and then we can have a discussion. And if you want to add to the discussion when we go back into open session, we can do so.
Okay.
If I could ask
Sure.
a question.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the closed session is to, for the lease or purchase, is that?
The purpose of the discussion is partially for the lease, but also to discuss expansion opportunities for the park and see if there's any interest in that.
All right. Thanks.
Motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Weary to go into closed session. Seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we will go into closed session. If Alder Weary, who made the motion, could read the language.
Sure. The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, section 1, subsection E, Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reason. The committee will therefore reconvene thereafter. The committee will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.82, section 2, Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda.
You know, we've,
Just give me a second to get set up for closed session.
okey-doke.
Okay, we are recording again.
Yeah, I'll take a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Weary, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are back in public session. I'll take a motion on the item.
Move to approve the renewal of the lease with Graymont
Mhm.
for a period of 10 years as written by the attorney.
Okay, upon the drafting, on the draft of the attorney.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Weary. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. We ready for 6?
Yes.
Here we go. Item 6, consideration with possible action on approving a resolution supporting construction of an additional portion of the West Side Trail to connect to the Mountain Bay State Trail. Dan?
So currently, the West Side Trail ends at Bond Street on the northwest side of Green Bay. And the long-term planning vision was always to connect the trail to the State Mountain Bay Trail, which is located in Howard. So throughout the years, the city has had multiple meetings with the village of Howard to attempt to determine the best way to achieve that goal. So over the past 5 years, Howard has actually started to implement this plan within their village limits. So they've secured funding and actually constructed portions of the trail section so that they can connect the Mountain Bay Trail to the city limits. So recently, the city of Green Bay applied for a Wisconsin DOT Transportation Alternatives Program grant. And if awarded, this grant would fund the installation of the trail section in the city limits to connect the West Side Trail at Bond Street to Taylor Street. And we would meet up to where the village of Howard recently constructed a trail section. So in order to be eligible for this grant opportunity, the city of Green Bay is required to adopt a resolution in support of the grant application. So you'll see that resolution in the agenda packet. The deadline to adopt the resolution is April 18th of this year. And if we don't reach that goal of adopting the resolution by April 18th, then they would not consider us for funding for this grant opportunity. So I also included the grant application that we submitted, and towards the back of that application is actually the budget breakdown of what we're requesting. So the total estimated cost for the project is about $530,000, and it's 80% DOT funded and 20% city funded. So in the application, we requested that the DOT funds $424,000 and the city funds the remaining $106,000. So the cost for this estimate does not only include construction costs, but also the associated engineering and construction administration along with that. So hiring a consultant to monitor the construction and do the necessary reporting with the DOT, because it's pretty involved whenever you accept a grant through the DOT. So if the grant is awarded, the city would likely have to bond for their share of the funding. But please note that this resolution does not commit the city to funding the project. It only shows support of the grant application. So if this grant is awarded, we will have to bring the approval of the grant back to the Parks Committee and City Council to determine if we want to accept the grant, and then at that point, we would commit to funding the city's share. So, and if we do get the grant and proceed with the project, the trail would not be constructed until 2026 per the funding agreement. So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve the resolution supporting construction, supporting the resolution that's attached to the agenda.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else got any questions or comments?
No, I hope we get it.
Yep. Alder Gerlach?
Where does the $106,000 come from?
It would likely come from city bonding in the future. We don't have the funding available right now. We'd have to request it as part of a future capital improvement plan.
And
We
the
want
other
to get the
members?
grant. We want to make sure we got the grant first.
Okay, and so the rest of you are comfortable with this then?
Oh, you betcha. Let's get these trails. This has been in the works a long time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mark, Alderman
It's been a long
Story will be
trail.
ecstatic.
I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Weary to approve, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. And while we're on trails, Dan, for our next meeting, could we get an update on the East River Trail, how that's moving
Yeah.
along?
I'll be able to update you on that at the next meeting.
Are we ready for the last item? Item number 7 for regular business. Consideration with possible action on approving the purchase of 24 light poles and fixtures at Bay Beach Amusement Park.
So the
Do the
city,
fixtures include the lights? The actual bulbs?
yeah, yes, it would actually.
Okay.
So The city received a Wisconsin Coastal Management grant for $100,000 to go towards the cost to replace the shoreline walk at Bay Beach Amusement Park. So the scope of the work for the grant funding, it was written to partially fund the installation of the pavement, a small retaining wall, lighting, benches, and trash receptacles. And this was part of the beach and shoreline improvement project that was approved several years ago. The grant was also received several years ago, and we've gotten a few extensions on the funding to date. Per the terms of the grant, we are required to spend the grant funding by June 31st of 2022, so we have only a few months left to spend that money. And unfortunately, the grant administrators told us that we can't extend the grant out any farther due to restrictions in the funding that they're giving to us. So because the entire project will not be completed by the end of June, we're currently working with the grant administrators to modify the scope of work just to fund the pedestrian lighting along the future shoreline walk and central walkway that we're going to be building. So it's still part of the original scope, but it's kind of narrowing it down and focusing on just a specific element that we're going to construct prior to the rest of the shoreline walk. So what we're doing is we're proposing to purchase and install 24 ornamental light fixtures and poles. The grant representatives are currently reviewing the scope of work amendments, and we don't have approval from them yet, but we expect to have the approval fairly soon. So, and we're working with the purchasing department to quote out the purchasing of these light poles and fixtures, but unfortunately the quotes are not in yet either. Because of the strict time constraints to the funding, because we have to actually install these lights by the end of June in order to qualify for this funding. So it's not just purchase the lights. We are in a really big time constraint here to move ahead with this. So what we're seeking approval for is the committee to allow staff to award the quote to the lowest responsible vendor, not to exceed $120,000. We think it's going to come in more around $100,000, but I'd like to have a little bit of buffer if it goes slightly over. And we have reached out to several vendors, and we've told that the lead time for these light poles and fixtures is approximately 8 to 10 weeks. So if we wait until the next committee meeting and council meeting, which isn't for a month from now, that really would prohibit us from finishing the project on time. So unfortunately, I guess that's why we're seeking approval for pre-approval to order the light poles. So for 14 of the 24 poles and fixtures, we already have the footings installed and the underground conduit is installed. And that's on kind of the west part of the site. And we're working with the purchasing department to quote out the installation of the remaining 10 footings and underground conduit. So that second quote will come back to the Parks Committee if we need to at the next Parks Committee if it exceeds the dollar threshold for committee approval. So the grant funding will also fund the installation of these footings and the underground conduit. And then city crews would install the light poles and fixtures, and we can bill the time for our installation towards the grant also. So this is a 60-40 grant with the city funding 60% of the entire project, and the city's match will come from the existing Bay Beach Shoreline Improvement Project. Now keep in mind that this is an existing grant that was approved and with the same funding sources. So we're not requesting different funding sources to pay for this. All we're doing is amending the scope of the grant to just build a portion of the project now. And we'll build the portion, the next phase later on this fall.
Sounds like a bright idea to me. Any questions or comments from anyone?
Pretty straightforward. I approve. I'll make a motion to approve. But before I do so, Director Ditscheid and James, are we recording? Did you record when we came back from closed session?
Yes, we're
It's all
recording.
good?
Yep,
Okay, just making sure.
yep.
You're on record asking about recording.
There you go.
Motion to approve.
So
I'll make that motion.
Yep, Alder Burnett.
What I would like to, if I could just state the motion that I would recommend, and it's to authorize staff to award the purchase of 24 light poles and fixtures at Bay Beach Amusement Park to the lowest responsible bidder not to exceed $120,000.
Is that your motion, Alder Burnett?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. I like it.
A second.
Motion by Alder Burnett, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. All
there be like-
together now. And if we're ready for the staff presentation, staff can present.
Presentation.
Yes, so we're ready for that if you want to move on to that agenda item, Alder Scannell.
Yep, staff presentation on seasonal staff recruiting efforts for summer park positions.
I'm going to pass this on to James to give you more details. And, you know, we've done a considerable amount of work over the last few months, really promoting our seasonal staffing and doing, I would say, going above and beyond what we typically do to try to alleviate some of the concerns we've had over the last few years. And I know especially with lifeguards and ride attendants at Bay Beach, those are the ones that are hardest hit. But James will be able to give you a little more detail on what efforts we've done. So here he is.
All right, you guys ready for a high entertainment presentation here? All right,
Bring it on.
hold on to your seats. I'm going to try to paint this picture as optimistically as possible, but I will prelude this by saying the situation around hiring continues to be a major challenge. But the one thing we can guarantee is that we're honestly, in my 14 years here, we are trying every creative and way to try to recruit, retain, and hire staff as possible. And we're even looking at creative ways to essentially market in different ways than we've ever done before. And I'll highlight a few of those, but I just want to say we are putting a lot of extra focus on this and staff time. And unfortunately, it's a big hill to climb, I think. I just want to make sure that everybody knows how, trying to be optimistic, but it's definitely, as you can see everywhere you look still, and talking to even other, we've even reached out to other HR departments, other employers, what are they trying to do, different things they're trying, and it's just a big struggle right now. But to start, we've rebranded some of our efforts with postcards and videos. We're even doing some commercials at different, so if you go to for example, if you go to the East Side Cinema in the near future and check out a movie, you're going to see a commercial from the Park and Rec Department before you watch the movie. Items like that. We've been to already about a half a dozen job fairs. And I just so last night, for example, we were just at a job fair, and I will tell you, out of the 25 vendors that were there, or the 25 businesses trying to get many, many positions filled, there was 50 people signed up for this job fair. It was also open to the public, and there was probably only 20 people that actually showed up for this job fair. It's just an interesting, when you go into a job fair and it looks kind of like a ghost town, it's just an interesting thing right now. But so we're trying job fairs, and we're making connections with high schools, with different area community colleges, junior colleges, the universities, not only in the area but statewide. We're looking at different ways to try to promote and attract different trades. Trying to do apprenticeships, trying to turn them into internships, trying to persuade in any way to not only, because it's not necessarily, we found, about the dollars or the money. That's not necessarily something that's attracting most of the people that are applying. It's more resume building. For example, the only division that we've had a lot of success with is the wildlife sanctuary. And out of the 10 to 14 positions that we need to hire for the wildlife sanctuary, we actually have all those positions filled pretty much for the summer. It's a unique position. It's it's something that people can, build a resume on, and they need to build a resume on in order to go into the professional arena of that, area of their careers. So they need to work at places like that in order to build a resume. The other aspects of what we do, it doesn't necessarily seem like as much of an incentive for people to have the things like, for example, a parkie, where we used to see a lot of parkies come through that were trying to build a resume to become a teacher, a social worker, those different areas. It doesn't seem to be as needed as it was in the past to have those things on your resume in order to get the jobs that these people are applying for. But once again, in the parkie, division here with the recreation division, we're doing a promotion coming up shortly where you're going to see people doing testimonials and videos for how being a parkie essentially changed their life, and shows them what professions that we have within even our own community, whether it be judges, lawyers, teachers, social workers, that were parkies, and how it changed the direction or course of what they chose to do in their careers. So we're trying to pull in essentially the vision of what you want to do and how you want to be connected in the community in the future, instead of just relying on the hourly wage to attract them. We are sending out postcards in the mail. Bay Beach just sent out their first batch of postcards in the mail to try to do that. We're also making postcards that we're giving out and sending out shortly for the Live the Park Life, Love the Park Life new branding that we're doing with our jobs. And we're also, we have the, of course, lifeguard bonus plan that was approved, thankfully, by our council. So I know we included a flyer in the attachment that kind of goes over kind of the general components of that. But if you have any more questions on that bonus structure, we're looking to hopefully, and we haven't gotten a little bit of progress on that. But once again, I mean, it's something that we're definitely being optimistic, but we want to paint the reality that we still are, for example, as of right now in March, which I know it's not very warm out, so maybe people aren't thinking pools quite yet, but we're still 40 lifeguards short of where we need to be for our summer season. And we also need to get them lifeguards, of course, trained and certified and all that. But, once again, we're being optimistic. Social media marketing is ongoing. Like I said, we've been working with other HR departments to try to implement things like really progressive idea that we're trying to pilot on is actually doing video interviews. So, for example, a lot of this next generation, I'll call it, coming up is so used to having their phone and doing these, whether it's YouTube Shorts or Facebook Reels, they call them now, or whatever it is. They're so used to having their phone and doing everything on their phone that we're actually allowing them, we're trying this as a pilot program, and we're keeping track of if it works or not, but to submit their interview in a video via their phone. So we're trying every possible avenue, I guess, that we can come up with and we can try to be creative with to get anybody in the door that we can, of course, that is qualified. But we're just trying all these different aspects. So that's, that's a really quick version of a lot of things we're doing right now. But I guess, is there any questions or things that you guys have, maybe you guys have seen some things that have worked, but, we're open to everything right now. We're open to anybody that will listen to us, try to be creative with how to get staff to, we have a very interesting and unique department where we have 550 seasonal staff that we need to try to hire for all of our different areas. We just got back from a conference it's a state conference for park and rec professionals. And we talked to pretty much every municipality we could possibly think of talking to. And when we talk about our situation, they kind of look at us like in awe and in good luck, because nobody has even close to that amount of seasonal staff that they have to try to hire.
How about if we get our quota, every alder on council will shave their head?
I don't think that we can do it. We'll do it. Pie in the face for the director, I think. I think
that works.
Yeah. Alder Gerlach, did you have something?
Yes, I have questions.
Yes.
Go ahead.
What do you think? You know, last summer I thought, well, it's the pandemic. Summer before that, I thought, well, it's the pandemic. What do you think is the reason?
Well, Lynn, I will tell you, if you have the answer, then you'll be hired as a consultant for probably a Fortune 500 company right now. So,
Okay, well, then let's get some more information so I can win that prize, okay? You talked about, and you know, I might have just dozed off here for a little while. You talked about the people in the past, somehow, something about talking about how this led them to their future or how this played into a future, something like that. What did you actually do? Did you interview people who had worked for the city as a seasonal employee and got this information from them, got a testimonial? Is that what you've done?
that's what we are currently, we're accumulating all of those testimonials and videos. And
Okay.
we're going to be doing some promotions through social media, our website, and other avenues to try to, each week, we're going to kind of discuss the different positions that they have now and how being a parkie and how being a employee of the Parks Department kind of changed the course or led them to where they are now as essentially a successful community member.
And so far, have you got a few really good stories?
Yes, actually, we probably have the list that we had to reach out to was at least 80 or 90 people in the community, and we've got at least 20 back so far. So we're looking at hopefully within the next couple weeks starting to release those and promote that.
But I would guess that if you get 20, you don't have 20 great ones. I wonder if you have some that are just zingers, just like, wow.
We do have some that are pretty cool stories.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just very interested in marketing.
As am I.
And yeah, I'm interested in helping you with that.
Alder Burnett.
Yeah, just thinking outside by the way, thanks, James, for the update. Just thinking outside the box here. We've had 2 straight years where Joey's has not been open. We know that that's a pretty serious thing to go potentially a 3rd year to have one, if not more, of our pools closed down. That's not good. One thing that I think that we need to look at is Bay Beach more or less generates a profit, whereas the pools are kind of more of a sunken cost, excuse the pun, but we don't make money on pools. Well, we certainly do make money at Bay Beach. Is there a potential for this city government to be creative in paying more wages for those positions, knowing that we can generate some profit to the city? And then the pools, we just need to find a way to staff. And if that means we got to think a little more creatively and not necessarily use the Bay Beach revenue for things that we normally would use it for in order to fully staff all of our recreational facilities. Has that been a discussion? Is that even something you even thinking that would be a possibility? I don't even know how that would occur, what permissions the city government would have to grant you to do that.
Well,
Are you talking about shifting funds from Bay Beach to other parts? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. James?
yeah, I guess to go back to the initial is we did look at, we did change the pay scale for some of our seasonal positions, and 2 of the top positions that we did that for or reclassified them into a higher classification were Bay Beach and the pools. So we tried to, increase the pay in those areas, for seasonal staff. I'm not saying it hurts. I'm not saying it hurts, but it's definitely not all of a sudden magically everybody's knocking at our door to come running in and work there. So I think your idea would be a much bigger conversation, I guess. And we could always sit down and talk about that.
So I love all the work that all of you do, obviously. But when I've gone to Bay Beach this last summer, it was not, going to Bay Beach is always fun. Don't get me wrong, but it was not really an enjoyable experience because there's so much demand for the rides with very limited staff. And I would imagine that this year we're going to have a very large amount of people wanting to attend all of our facilities due to being locked up in homes and isolated due to COVID. And so I don't want to overwhelm whatever staff that we do have. and then all the user experience may not be what it probably should be. And I get the bigger picture. You're trying your hardest. I appreciate all that. But I guess as a city government, as a city council, as an administration, are there additional things that you would want us to allow you to do? And perhaps Director Ditchai can discuss that. But anyways, I just want to let you know I'm supportive of everything you're doing to find staff. I know it's difficult.
Yeah, and I think your points are really well taken, and I think it's those things we definitely have begun to discuss and strategize kind of a long-term vision for if this continues to be something that is continuing to be a challenge. Not only ideas like you brought up, but also how we look at facilities in the future. And, trying to, when we go through capital improvement plans or when we redo facilities, redoing them to not necessarily maybe need as many staff as we have had in the past. One of the other unique challenges we have, I think, with our department is it's kind of interesting, but we almost compete within our own department, at times, because we're attracting the same type of staff. And we're, between Bay Beach, the pools and playgrounds and these things, we're almost trying to we work together well as a team, but sometimes we joke around like, oh yeah, can I take this person? This person has some, history in the pools or whatever. Let's take them back. And, we work together really well, but yeah, it's kind of a struggle sometimes because we're attracting the same type of staff.
Has there been any thought about maybe marketing into the school systems? I mean, I don't think we get many teachers, but maybe aides or others who might be looking for summer work, while school's out.
Yeah, we definitely do. We definitely do that. We have actually, we have quite a few. I would say maybe about a dozen or two that at least I know of right offhand that actually work for the schools as teachers, or and then they come and work for us in the summer, and then they go back and of course continue their teaching. We are doing some job fairs within the schools. I know we have one set up in April with West High School for their students, and also open to the public, after the students come through. We're really just essentially attempting to reach out and do whatever we can and make it a focus.
Is it just directed at teachers, or is it at the whole staff, like aides?
Anybody, essentially.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, we have a direct
So I got it.
contact. We have a direct contact with the schools. Their employee and their liaisons, I guess, know about our situation, but we're also competing. I don't want to say against the schools, but the schools have the luxury of paying people quite more per hour than we can pay, and so a lot of the difficulty we have with that is, we're actually losing a lot of our people to the schools right now in some of our positions.
Lynn, Alder Gerlach?
Are high school students one of your target audiences, or are they good employees for what you're looking for?
If they're not good employees, Lynn, we build them into good employees.
But
So
what I mean is, are they the right age for what you're looking for?
yeah, we have we have positions even up 14 years old.
Okay.
We can start hiring for some positions, and then depending on the different positions, of course, some have to be 18 years old, like ride operators, or we want people that at least are through high school for playground leaders and things like that. But yes, high schoolers we definitely do recruit and hopefully give them a great experience, and so they can hopefully come back and we retain them into when they get older too.
Have you looked into their possibility of their earning some kind of school credit for doing this kind of job?
Yes, that's actually something we're looking into right now, and we have a meeting set up, I think, for college credit, we have something set up, and we're also meeting with the West High career liaison, and we're talking about things like that as well, where they would actually receive some type of credit, especially in our parks and forestry, with the trades, trying to get students that are interested in going into the trades would get some sort of credit to go into and actually utilize for NWTC or other avenues. So we're kind of looking at a lot of that stuff. But if you continue to send me any encouraging ideas or creative ideas, I'm more than happy to look into them.
Well, it just, I spend a lot of time walking my dog at along the East River in the summer, and I see what's going on at East High School, and it just amazes me the number of students who are taking physical education during the summer so they can take something else like art or music during the school year. And I'm very impressed with that. And I thought, well, if they're interested in earning school credit by taking tennis, for example, maybe they'd be interested in earning school credit by being a lifeguard.
I will definitely continue to pursue that idea.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone? Alder Weary?
One word. Huber.
Huber.
Okay, maybe
Huber.
not. Maybe not. Okay, that one won't work. A lot of Huber people looking for jobs.
Yeah.
The way this is something that, have to solve. We have so many great amenities and they can't function without the workers. So I don't missing out on a lot of the younger people, right? They're doing whatever else right now. And I don't know if it's us or is there somebody else who's reached out and see why they're doing it or what it would take to draw them to this type of job. What happened? It's like they went away and just didn't come back. If we could find out what would bring them back, And I know you're doing a great job with, some incentives and a better pay and really getting it out there into the social media to try and draw them back. And I hope that works. If it doesn't, we're going to have to really double down and have all these great amenities and not staff them. I applaud you for what you're doing. I hope it works, man. Whatever you need, I think the council's willing to help, really.
And we appreciate that, and I do agree. Back to Alder Burnett's comments, I think at some point we will have to sit down and really strategize a little bit differently as going forward long term on what this looks like. Because I'll just give an example. Somebody talked to at the career fair yesterday is they had 200 positions they hired for something, and they were paying up to $30 an hour to try to get those positions. On the day that these people were supposed to show up, 45 didn't show up. So that's the kind of obstacles we're up against right now.
How about robots? The industry's mechanized. Why can't we mechanize too?
There you go.
We'll just get one of those big hooks over a pool, and if somebody's having some, just
block them out.
Come on, you guys, I'm getting hungry.
Okay.
All right, I think that's enough. Unless someone's got something else. Okay, thank you very much, James. Take a motion to receive and place that report on file, that presentation.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Weary, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that presentation is on file. The director's report, very good. Anything you wanted to add on top of it, Dan?
I don't have anything in addition to add.
Anybody got any questions or comments?
Yep. Thanks for helping with the issue yesterday there, Dan.
You're welcome. And we will try to get that resolved soon, but it is somewhat weather dependent as far as the temperatures, so.
Okay, I'll take a motion to receive and place the director's report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Weary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then our next parks scheduled meeting is April 13th, 2022. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn it.
Before we adjourn, please, I have a question because I looked at the INS agenda and they are suggesting that their next meeting is going to be on a different date. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Don't we always meet at the same time?
Well, the next council meeting isn't going to be until April 19th. So if there are additional things that we need to resolve, we could have a meeting the same day as INS, but there would be no follow-up council meeting, is my understanding, 2 weeks from now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Weary.
Second.
Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye bye. Thank you very much, Dan and James. Excellent.
When shall we be back?
6:35, all right? 7 minutes?
That'll
Okay, I'll
work.
go fast.
That'll get you a hot pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you in 7.
Thank you.
We'll see people on INS.
Yeah. I don't know what's up with that microphone when you go into closed session. I couldn't get it to work either. That's why I came back to this one. It had the echoey when I was sitting over there. I couldn't get.